Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. This week I want to talk about when people don't recognize themselves in the research that scholars do about them. There were two major publications this year in which people wrote to me and said, variations on, I don't recognize myself in that work. The first one was Harel Shapira's editorial piece in the New York Times in which he talked about how defensive gun training classes are basically destroying society. And the other was Jennifer Carlson's new book called Merchants of the Right, in which she looked at gun sellers in relationship to American democracy. And in response to both of those items, I got people writing to me, messaging me on social media or commenting on my social media saying, I just don't recognize myself in those descriptions. I took a concealed carry class. What Shapira says about concealed carry classes doesn't match my experience. Or I took a defensive pistol class, or I teach these things, and this is not what I do. And in the case of Jennifer Carlson, sort of either I bought guns, this is not my experience in gun stores, or I sell guns, and this is not how I see things. And so, I think it's worth pausing for a moment to think about how do we understand this kind of situation. And I actually have some experience with this because in one of my early works, back when I was doing the sociology of religion, I wrote a book that was basically 5 case studies of the adult initiation process in the Catholic Church. And what we tried to do in each of those case studies was write the case study up and then send it to the people in the parish that we were studying for them to look over and say, yeah, you got the story right, or I may not agree with you, but factually what you're saying is correct. We thought it was important to get the story right before we went public with it. But there was one case in which we sent the document to the person heading the program at the parish that we studied. We had changed the names and some descriptions for privacy for when we published the study. But she read our description of what we had observed in her parish, and she responded to me that she thought I had sent them the wrong study because she didn't recognize herself in what we wrote. I stood by what I had observed, and I talked to her about it after the fact, and she came to see, oh yeah, I guess I didn't really have a good sense of what I was doing. And it often is the case that we don't fully understand what we're doing. The insider perspective tells us something, but also having an outsider perspective helps tell us something. This is why people have counselors, or this is why people do leadership training and 360 evaluations, because we don't always fully understand ourselves. And so, just because someone reads Harel Shapira's opinion piece, or they read Jennifer Carlson's book and they say, I don't see myself in that description, we don't necessarily immediately conclude that there's a fault in the description. But it does, and I think it should give scholars concern if people are responding very consistently to say, hey, that's not how I understand what's going on, or that's not how I understand that situation. And I know one thing that I take pride in my work on American gun culture is trying to tell an accurate and truthful story of American gun culture from the inside out. And when people read what I write about gun culture that I post on my blogs and say, hey, I think you did a good job of describing what was going on there, I feel some satisfaction in that, and also confidence in bringing that forward into the public in the form of publications. And when people say, hey, I don't think you got that exactly right, I also take that seriously. Doesn't mean I necessarily change my analysis entirely, but it does require me to think more systematically about what I'm saying, and where I may need to modify things, or where I may need to say, hey, I think I got it right, even if you don't see it in that same way. So in any event, when people read scholarship and say, I don't see myself in that, it doesn't mean that the scholarship is wrong, but I think it does give scholars pause for reflection. I know I do that in my own work, and I'm sure that other scholars do as well. I'd be interested in your thoughts if you've read studies of gun owners or gun culture or something else that you're involved in and found some distance between your own experience and what was written. Share that experience. I'm interested in learning more about it. If you have gained something from these videos, as always, I appreciate if you would like and share the work so that other people can learn about what I'm doing here.